Hi, all right. I'm Mike Catron. We are going to cover two basics of creating space. One that requires contact with an aggressive person and one designed to keep threats away. So let's start with the one designed to make contact. We're going to make gentle contact. So from our standard combat position, you can go to the fence, which we talked about in an earlier video, or you can come straight from combat position and just make sure your hand slides down the shaft of the cane until you have a firm grip on the straight part of the cane and that you're not working from the hook. If you work from the crook on the poke, it's much more likely for your cane to get deflected and slide in your hand. It's much less effective. So let's just go from the ground up. From here, I'm going to snap the cane up at about my hip height. So just taking my wrist and cocking it forward to here, right? So I'm not yet stabbing or thrusting. I'm not bringing the cane up away from my body. I want to keep my elbow, wrist, and shoulder pretty close and almost in a line so that I have quick control over the cane. Notice as well that as I make this motion, that if this hand wasn't already engaged, that I bring it up in front of my body, in front of my neck, in case I need to protect myself with my left. I also make sure to turn my hips and shoulders away from the line of attack to create even more space and fewer targets. And from here, all we're going to do is poke forward once the cane comes up. Sometimes the attacker is even on the cane already. If someone is closing in, right, as we come here, they might actually run into the tip of the cane, and then we're going to give a gentle shove, both hoping to send the attacker back a bit, but also using that to move away from the attacker on our own. We still don't want to engage in combat if we can avoid it. So this is my friend Bob. The best target for the poke is right here in the hip pocket. So you're aiming just off the line of the groin, but inside the curvature of the hip, where that groove in the pelvis is. Right, there's a pressure point, there's some blood vessels in there. If you hit it hard and fast, it can be incredibly painful, but it's also incredibly destabilizing. If you want to experiment with this, you can just put the end of your cane against the wall and just kind of lean, and you can feel that your body doesn't really want to go any further. Right? If Bob had the cane and I were walking forward and he caught me here, I can't really hit him, especially if his upper body is acting when he's leaning away. And because he has my hips, I'm kind of stuck in terms of my mobility. It's possible to aim directly for the groin. If you feel really threatened, it's also possible to take the poke to the face of the throat. But the higher the cane travels, the more likely your aggressor is to become aware of it and use hands and arms to redirect the cane. And now the cane has gone past that body and your attacker is closer to you while your weapon is a little less useful. So just like in football or basketball, if you want to know which way your opponent's going and you want to control your opponent's movement, we go for the hips. So from here, we just pop the cane up and stick it straight forward. Now when you're sweaty, your hand might slide a little bit. Squeeze as hard as you can with your ring finger and pinky finger to help minimize that, right, and just create space. And again, you can say things like, no, back off, right? You can go from the poke directly into the fence if you've created space. Wait and see what happens. It's also possible to come from the poke into much more aggressive attitudes should you need them, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. So just from here, quick wrist up, create space. Notice I back away, and if Bob didn't weigh 210 pounds and had legs, he would probably back away too. So that's thing one. Just the poke, use your voice, protect the other side of your body with your hand. Let's talk about a figure eight. So figure eight can be a strike, it can be a fairly devastating strike, but it's also a pretty good intimidation tool. So if you have space around you, right, if your initial fence doesn't work, right, you pop it up and the person is kind of circling you and it still looks like they might want a piece of you and you don't really want to hit them, you can start using the cane as a flail. And this can be intimidating enough, at least to keep people at bay until someone comes for help and you can back out of this right? And just create space for yourself inside this movement. So here's how to do a figure eight. Your hand slides into the crook of the cane. It's hard to get it to work slowly. There's a lot of inertia at work. The first thing I'm going to do is turn my palm to the ceiling and relax my grip slightly so that the cane drops to the ground. Then from here, I'm just going to rotate my wrist till the cane comes and points up, and then relax my wrist so it drops to the ground. And as I do this, I need to move my hand side to side on my body so that I don't swing the cane into myself inadvertently. This is another reason it's good to keep this hand close and one hip back, narrowing your profile as regards the direction of the cane. So it swings here and there, and it's really just rolling the wrist 180 degrees, thumb one way, thumb the other way, and then letting the force of the cane add to the spin, which can be a pretty scary maneuver. You have a lot of freedom of movement inside a figure eight if you need it. It's also possible to use all of these downward motions as a strike, something you should practice, because when you do hit a target with a figure eight, the cane does things that you're not familiar with, so you have to get used to that ricochet. It's a good idea, as you practice with your cane, to practice with both hands. You never know if you'll be holding something, or if one arm gets disabled for whatever reason. So it's also good as you practice your figure eight to practice an exchange. I'm going to slow down. So as my hand crosses my body, goes to the opposite side of the swinging arm, I'm going to meet the cane with my other hand. So from here, I'm going to open my left hand, and as my right hand comes across, I meet the cane and take it with my left, and then convert that motion into a figure eight. I don't fully make the exchange until I return the inertia toward the front of my body. You can do it earlier. I should turn for you. So as I meet the cane here, this is not the exchange, and then I crank with my left. I let the cane start coming back just a little bit before I get my right hand out of there to make the exchange. So there's your figure eight, and there's your straight line poke. If you ever need to get out of your figure eight and you're not sure how to stop because it just sort of peters out, a really nice way to control the figure eight is to do a trap on the side where your cane is spinning. So I have the cane in my right hand. When I come down, as though to go to my left, I'm going to keep my hand on the right side of my body and bring the cane into my armpit. The closer my hand is to my body, the less force the cane will have, right? The damage is way out here at the tip. So if I keep the cane close to my body, I can trap it here in relative comfort. Should I need to use the cane again, just turn your hand slightly to the ground, drop the cane out, come up over your head, and you're back into a figure eight. I'll do that again facing the camera. So I'm going to trap here. All right, I'm going to come out. I'm going to let the cane drop, snap it up over my head, and then I'm into a crossbody figure eight. It is possible to trap on the other side of your body, should you need to, and you can get right back into your figure eight from here just by lifting this elbow and dropping the cane across your body. There is a bit more of a chance for weird things to happen. You can get the horn into your ribs, and when your cane is across your body, sometimes we have a tendency to pull away, generating a little bit more force with that upswing. But from here, you can put the cane away if you need it, slips back out, and trap on the right, and up overhead, and back into the figure eight. And if you really want to get interesting, right, you can keep the cane spinning in an overhead loop as well, and I'm just circling my wrist in the same way that I do on the figure eight. I'm just making slightly smaller adjustments with my thumb. The one thing you should avoid doing when you work on your figure eights is an upward figure 8. Thusly, it is possible to train this up and make it look pretty scary and intimidating, but it is harder to control, and it is a little bit more dangerous for you, since should you lose control of the cane, the velocity is heading towards your head rather than heading toward the ground or your shins. So, for practical purposes, the downstroking figure 8 is your best bet. All right. Thank you for tuning in. There'll be more advanced techniques coming up in future videos.